What's up, guys? Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, Sir Daite. And today, let's talk about the Philippine Constitution.
Abstraction. A constitution is a body of fundamental rules or accepted norms. It governs a state or another type of organization. It stood for the country's independence and freedom. Since 1897, the Philippine Constitution has changed. The Act of United States Congress, the 1899 Malolos Constitution, the 1897 Biak na Bato Constitution, Philippine Organic Act of 1902, Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, and other acts of the States Congress, the 1935 Constitution, the 1943 Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the Tiding-McDuffie Act of 1934 Constitution, Freedom Constitution of 1986, and Constitution of 1987.
The 1897 Constitution of the Biak na Bato. It was on March 22, 1897, where the Tejeros Convention was held at San Francisco de Malabon. Emilio Aguinaldo was held as the first president of the Philippines that was elected by the members of Katipunan. Mariano Trias was also elected by the members of Katipunan as the first vice president of the Philippines. It was on November 1, 1897, the Republic of Biak na Bato, or República de Biak na Bato in Spanish, was established during a meeting held at Biak na Bato in the town of San Miguel de Mayumo in Bulacan. This was a de facto constitutional republic. De facto constitutional republic is a type of government that a revolutionary country would like to acquire. The Constitution that was acted as the Constitutional Assembly and was promulgated by the Katipunan in the meeting was written by Isabelo Artacho and Felix Ferrer. The latter Constitution, or the Biak na Bato Constitution, or also known as the Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas, did not make it long last, as it was only ended from November 1, 1897 to December 14, 1897. Now, let us proceed to the preamble of the 1987 Constitution of Biak na Bato. The separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its own government from the Spanish monarchy called the Philippine Republic has been ended south by the revolution in the existing war, begun on the 24th of August, 1896, and therefore, in its name and by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions. We, the representatives of the revolution, in a meeting at the Biak na Bato on November 1st, 1897, unanimously adopt the following articles for the Constitution of the state.
The Acts of United States Congress was in operation from December 10, 1898 to March 24, 1934. Since the Philippines was a charity of the United States during this period, because of the Treaty of Paris, which transferred the sovereignty from Spain to the United States. The Philippine Act 1902 passed an organic establishing a civil government for the Philippine Island in 1902. After U.S. troops suppressed a Filipino nationalist movement, except one occupied by Japan during World War II in the Philippines remained under U.S. control until Congress recognized two independence in 1946. Autonomy Act of 1916. Jones Act, formerly Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, statute announcing the intention of the United States government to withdraw their sovereignty over the Philippines island as soon as a stable government can be established therein. The U.S. had acquired the Philippines in 1898 as a result of the Spanish American. Tidings McDuffie Act of 1934. Tidings McDuffie Act, also called Philippine Commonwealth and Independent Act 1934, the U.S. statute that provided for the Philippine independence to take effect on July 4, 1946, after a 10 years transitional period of Commonwealth government passed by United States Congress were considered as the Philippine constitutions because they provide for the fundamental political principles and establish the structure, procedures, powers, and duties of the Philippine government.
Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, also known as the Jones Law, amended the structure of the Philippines government that was provided for in the Philippine Bill of 1902. Ang Jones Law ay isang batas upang ipinahayag ang layunin ng mga tao ng United States tungkol sa kinabukasan ng katayang politika ng mga tao ng Pilipinas. Ang Philippine Bill naman ay isang pasamantala upang magbibigay para sa mga pamamahala ng mga pamamahalaang sibil sa Pilipinas at para sa ibang mga layunin. It removed the Philippine Commission Upper House and replaced it with the Senate, whose members were elected by the Filipino voters. Because of this, the Philippine first fully elected national legislature came into being. A notable statement of this act was the explicit expression of the United States to grant the Philippines its independence as soon as a stable Philippine government will be established. Ang Philippine Commission ay ipinalitan ng Senado. Ang mga membro ay inahalal ng mga botanteng Pilipino. Dahil dito nabuo ang unang ganap ng nahalal na pambansang legislatura ng ating bansa at isang matatag na pamamahalaan ng ating bansa.
Tidings McDuffie Act of 1934. Philippines was colonized by the U.S. in 48 long years, until the U.S. granted independence in 1946. So how did this happen? Noong March 1934, isang bagong batas ang ipinasa ng Kongreso ng United States na pinirmahan ni President Franklin Roosevelt at ito ang Tidings McDuffie Act of 1934 o mas kilala bilang Philippine Commonwealth and Independence Act of 1934. America decided to free the Philippines to free themselves from the burden of maintaining the island. Times were hard, and American taxpayers were eager to throw overboard their expensive tropical liabilities in the Philippine Islands. So, to cut the long story short, America wanted the Philippines to live in their own ground and stop depending on American resources, and also for the Philippines to freely make good use of their own crops and goods. Kaya naman, sa loob ng 10 taon ng transitional period, ito ang panahon ng pagsasanay na kung saan ginagabayan ng United States ang Pilipinas upang maihanda ang bansa para maging independent. Nagsimula ang 10-year transitional period sa taong 1935 at nagtapos noong July 4, 1946. The eventful day arrived on July 4, 1946, when the United States recognized Philippines' independence in the Treaty of Manila. The Philippine-American Friendship Day is celebrated every 4th of July to commemorate the Philippine independence from the United States of America. July 4, 1946 was truly that time when the two countries have been together with gratitude and gratification.
Good afternoon, sir. My topic for today is the 1935 Philippine Constitution. This constitution was written in 1934 with the goal of meeting the United States expectation of political maturity among Philippine leaders so that a full of real independence could be granted by the US. The Constitution was promulgated by the 1934 Constitutional Convention. and was in operation during the Commonwealth era, 1935 to 1946, until the Third Republic, July 4, 1946 to January 16, 1973. The Third Republic started was with the granting of Philippine independence from U.S. domination on July 4, 1946 to Rojas administration, 1953 to 1957, Garcia administration, 1957 to 1967, and Macabagal administration, 1961 to 1965. It means ang konstitusyong ito ay sinulat noong 1934 na may layunin na matugunan ang Estados Unidos, pag-asa ng politikal na kapanahunan ng mga Pilipino ng Pilipinas, upang ang isang ganap at tunay na kalayaan ay maaring ibigay ng US at konstitusyong ito ay pinahayag noong 1934 Constitutional Convention at gumagana noong panahon ng Commonwealth, 1935 to 1946, hanggang sa ikatlong republika. Ang ikatlong republika nagsimula sa pagkakaloob ng kalayaan ng Pilipinas mula sa dominasyon ng US noong Hulyo 4, 1946 sa Rojas administration, sa Garcia administration noong 1957 to 1961 at Macapagal administration 1961 to 1965. During the Commonwealth period, the form of government was presidential system, with the president serving a sixth term without re-election. It also provided for a unicameral National Assembly. However, in 1940, an amendment was done establishing unicameral by bicameral Congress of the Philippines composed of a Senate and House of Representatives, as well the creation of an independent electoral commission. Moreover, president terms was changed from 6 years without re-election for a fourth-year term, with a maximum of two consecutive terms in office. Noong kapanahunan daw ng Commonwealth, ang anyo ng pamahalaan ay presidential sistema, kung saan ang Pangulo ay nagsisilbi ng 6 na taong termino ng walang muling halalan. Naglaan din ito ng Unicameral Universal Assembly. Gayunpaman, noong 1940, isang susog ang ginawa sa pagtatag ng isang bicameral Congress of the Philippines na binubuo ng isang Senado. Ang termino ng Pangulo ay binago mula sa 6 na taon nang walang muling halalan sa isang 4 na taon na termino na may maximum na 2 magkasunod na termino sa panunungkulan. In the Third Republic, the 1935 Constitution was still in operation. The form of a government of the Philippines was unitary presidential constitutional republic. Again, an amendment was made in 1947, which provided for provision of the parity rights between the American and the Filipino citizens. The parity rights granted the U.S. citizens and corporations equal rights with Filipino citizens over the Philippine natural resources. Sa ikatlong republika daw, ang 1935 ay gumagana pa rin. Ang anyo ng pamahalaan ng Pilipinas ay Unitary Presidential Constitutional Republic. Muli, isa ginawa ang pag-amyenda noong 1947. Naglaan ng provision ang parity rights sa pagitan ng Amerikano at mga mamamayang Pilipino. Ang parity rights ay nagbigay sa mga mamamayan ng US at korporasyon pantay na karapatan sa mga mamamayang Pilipino na likas na yaman ng Pilipinas. Yun lang po at maraming salamat.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, my fellow classmates. Without further ado, let's continue to discuss the Philippine Constitution 1935. Okay, so in 1971, a constitutional convention was held to write or revise the 1935 Constitution. However, so much for corruption marred the process. In 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos proclaimed martial law to suppress the increasing civil strife and the threat communists take over the government. The proclamation of martial law suspended in 1935 Constitution. So, it means guys na noong 1971 raw ay may isang constitutional convention ang ginanap upang muling isulat o baguhin ang 1935 Constitution. Constitution means the basic principles and laws of a nation. Gayunpaman, napakaraming mga katiwalian ang sumira sa proseso noong 1972. Idineklara ni President Ferdinand Marcos ang batas militar upang sukuin ang lumalalang alitang sibil at ang banta ng komunista um, pag-take over sa gobyerno. Kanang sila ang kanang gunit itaw. So, sinuspinde ng proklamasyon ng batas militar ang 1935 Constitution. Okay, so let's continue. The preamble of the 1935 Constitution reads, the Filipino imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideas, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare and secure to themselves and the prosperity that the blessings of independence under a regime of justice, liberty, and democracy do ordain and promulgate the Constitution. Okay guys, so it means daw na kababasa sa preamble. Preamble means introduction ng 1935 Constitution, ang sambayanang Pilipino na humihingi ng tulong sa Divine Providence. Divine Providence means guidance mula sa Panginoon upang matatag ng isang pamahalaan na maglalaman ng kanilang mga mitiin, mag-iingat at magpapaunlad ng patrimonya sa bansa, magtataguyod ng pangkalahatang kapakanan at magtitiyak sa kanilang prosperidad at seguridad sa kanilang sarili at ang mga pagpapala ng kalayaan sa ilalim ng isang pamunuan ng katarungan o justice at demokrasya ang siyang italaga at ipahayag ng konstitusyong ito. And that's all. Thank you.
The 1943 Constitution. The Preparatory Committee for Philippine Independence, or PCPI, promulgated the 1943 Philippine Constitution during the Japanese occupation of the country. Most of the members of the PCPI were delegates to the convention that drafted the 1935 Constitution. The Constitution was ratified by the Popular Convention of the Calibapi in Manila on September 7, 1943. So, some of you may not know about Calibapi. So, Calibapi is a fascist Filipino political party that served as the sole party of state during the Japanese occupation. It was intended to be a Filipino version of Japan's governing Imperial Rule Assistance Association. The 1935 Constitution provided for a government that is a limited democracy, while the 1943 Constitution provided for a government that is a form of constitutional dictatorship. Moving on. Following its ratification, the Second Republic was then formally proclaimed. The Second Philippine Republic was a single-party authoritarian republic. Jose P. Laurel was appointed as president by the National Assembly and was inaugurated into office on October 14, 1943. And Benigno Simeon Aquino Sr. was the Speaker of the National Assembly. The 1943 Constitution was in operation in Japanese-controlled areas of the Philippines from October 14, 1943 to August 17, 1945 only. However, the United States and the Commonwealth government, which was in exile, did not recognize the said constitution. Laurel formally dissolved the Second Republic, the Philippine Republic, following the surrender of Japan in World War II. The preamble of the 1943 Constitution reads, "The Filipino, imploring the aid of divine providence and desiring to lead a free national existence, do hereby proclaim their independence and develop the patrimony of the nation, and contribute to the creation of a world order based on peace, liberty, and moral justice, do ordain this Constitution. So, next reporter, please.
The 1973 Constitution. The 1973 Constitution was promulgated by the 1973 Constitutional Convention after Marcos declared martial law. What involves in martial law? Martial law involves the temporary substitution of military authority for civilian rule, and is usually invoked in time, war, rebellion, or natural disaster. When martial law is in effect, the military commander of an area or country has unlimited authority to make and enforce laws. But before President Marcos declared martial law, a constitutional convention was already in the process of deliberating on amending or revising the 1935 Constitution. They finished their work and submitted it to President Marcos on December 1, 1972. President Marcos submitted it for ratification in early January of 1973. The 1973 Constitution ruled the Fourth Philippine Republic from January 17, 1973 to February 22, 1986. A unicameral legislature was established during this period. House members were elected for a 6-year term of office. The president was elected from among the members of the National Assembly for a 6-year term and eligible for re-elections. The elected president will serve only as purely ceremonial head of state. The prime minister was the head of government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Although the 1973 Constitution had been ratified in this manner, opposition against it continued. Chief Justice Roberto V. Concepcion, in his dissenting opinion in the case of Janela v. Executive Secretary, exposed the fraud that happened during the Citizens' Assembly ratification of the 1973 Constitution on January 10 to 15, 1973. However, the final decision of this case was that the ratification of the 1973 Constitution was valid and was in force. The 1973 Constitution amended on 4 occasions. 1. In the 1976 amendments, the Interim National Assembly was replaced by the Interim Batasang Pambansa. The President would also become the Prime Minister and would exercise legislative powers until the lifting of the martial law. The President can legislate on his own on an emergency basis. 2. In the 1980 amendment, the retirement age of the members of the judiciary was extended to 70 years. 3. In the 1981 amendments, the false parliamentary system was formally modified into a French-style semi-presidential system where direct election to the president and the executive power was restored to the president. An executive committee composed of the prime minister and not more than 14 members was created to assist the president in the exercise of his power and functions and the performance of his duty as he may prescribe, and the Prime Minister was a mere head of the cabinet. 4. The 1984 amendment abolished the Executive Committee and restored the position of the Vice President.
And that's all for my report. Thank you. In 1980 amendment, the retirement age of the members of the judiciary was extended to 70 years. In the 1981 amendments, the full parliamentary system was formally modified into a French-style semi-presidential system, where executive power was restored to the president. Direct election of the president was restored. An executive committee composed of the prime minister and not more than 14 members was created to assist the president in the exercise of his powers and function and in the performance of his duties as he may prescribe, and the prime minister was a mere head of cabinet. The 1984 amendment abolished the executive Committee and restore the position of Vice President. Ang pagre-retiro ng mga membro ng judiciary ay pinalawig ng 17 taon at ang huwad na sistemang parliamentary system ay binago sa estilong French style. Semi-presidential na sistema, ang kapangyarihan tagapaghanap ay naibalik ito sa Pangulo at direktahang halalan ng Pangulo. Ang komite na binubuo ng Prime Minister na hindi hihigit pa sa 14 na membro, nilikha upang ito'y makatulong sa Pangulo at sa pagsasagawa ng kanyang kapangyarihan at tungkulin sa iba sa abot ng kanyang makakaya. Ang Prime Minister ay isang pinuno lamang ng gabinete in 1984. Ang judiciary ay inalis ang executive committee at ibinalik ito sa posisyong pagka-vice presidente. The preamble of the 1973 Constitution reads, "We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody our ideals, promote the general welfare, conserve and develop the patrimony of our nation, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessing of democracy under a regime of justice, peace, liberty, and equality. Do ordain and promulgate this Constitution." Ang sabayanang Pilipino ay humihingi ng tulong sa Divine Providence upang maging matatag ang isang gobyerno at maglalaman ng mithiin upang maitataguyod ang pagkakalahatang mga kapakanan, mag-ingat at bumuo ng patrimonya sa ating bansa at siguraduhin sa ating sarili at sa ating mga inapo na mga pagpapawala ng demokrasya at magkaroon ng mga katarungan at kayapaan.
1986 Freedom Constitution. Right after the 1986 People Power Revolution that forced President Marcos to come to power, President Corazon Aquino released Proclamation No. 3 to serve as a temporary constitution. The proclamation contains certain provisions adopted from the 1973 Constitution, powers such as government recognition, removal of officers, appointing a commission that draft the new and more formal constitution, which reflection will be replaced by the Freedom Constitution.
The first part of Proclamation No. 3 reads, "Whereas the new government was installed through a direct exercise of the power of the Filipino people, assisted by units of the new armed forces of the Philippines." Means, ang ating pamahalaan daw ay itinatag sa pamamagitan ng direktang paggamit ng power ng ating mamamayang Pilipino na tinulungan ng New Armed Forces of the Philippines. Whereas the heroic action of the people was done in defiance of the provisions of the 1973 Constitution as amended. It means, ang ating kabayanihan ng mga tao ay ginawa bilang pagsuway sa mga probisyon ng 1973 Constitution gaya ng amyendahan. Whereas, the direct mandate of the people as manifested by their extraordinary action demands the complete reorganization of the government, restoration of democracy, protection of basic rights, rebuilding of confidence in the entire governmental system, eradication of graft and corruption, restoration of peace and order, maintenance of the supremacy of civilian authority over the military, in the transition to a government under a new constitution in the shortest time possible. It means, ang tuwirang mandado daw ng mamamayan ay pinikita ng kanilang pambihirang aksyon ay nangangailangan ng ganap na reorganisasyon ng gobyerno, resto, pag-alis ng mga graft and corruption, pagpapanatili ng kapayapaan at kaayusan, pagpapanatili ng soberanya ng sibilyan sa militar at pagtatatag ng bagong pamahalaan. Whereas, during the period of transition to a new constitution, it must be guaranteed that government will respect basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. Means, kinakailangan na lumipat sa isang bagong konstitusyon sa lalong madaling panahon. Dapat itong tiyakin na itataguyod ng pamahalaan ang mga pangunahing kalayaan at karapatang pantao. Wherefore, I, Corazon C. Aquino, President of the Philippines, by virtue of the powers vested in me by the sovereign mandate of the people, do hereby promulgate the following provisional constitution. In line with this, Corazon C. Aquino, ang Pangulo ng Pilipinas, sa pamamagitan nito, inilalabas ko ang mga sumusunod na regulasyon gamit ang otoridad na ipinagkaloob sa akin ng mga tao ang nabanggit na Provisional Constitution.
Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, Sir Daite. And today, let's talk about the 1987 Philippine Constitution. The 1987 Philippine Constitution, or the fundamental law or the supreme law for the land, was drafted by a Constitutional Assembly that was mandated in Proclamation Number 3. To the commission composed 50 members appointed by the President Corazon Aquino from various backgrounds. Former members of the House of the Representatives, former justices of the Supreme Court, a Roman Catholic bishop, and a political activist against the Marcos regime. Cecilia Muñoz Palma, who was a former Associate Chief of Justice of the Supreme Court, was elected by the Commission as its president. The final draft of the 1987 Constitution was finished on October 12, 1986. And was presented to the President Aquino on October. The Constitution was ratified on February 8, 1987 for a nationwide plebiscite. The 1987 Constitution operates since 1987 to anti the Marcos regime. So Cory started it, and the 1987 Constitution operates start of Cory Aquino 1986 to 1982, Fidel Ramos 1992 to 1998, Joseph Estrada 1998 to 2001, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo 2001-2010, Benigno Aquino III 2010 to 2016, and the current administration of Roa Duterte, or the previous administration. And I think the 1987 Philippine Constitution still runs or operates until the present administration.
The 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, Preamble. We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God, in order to build a just and humane society, and establish a government that shall embody our ideals and aspirations, promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of the independence and democracy under the rule of law and a regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. Do ordain and promulgate the Constitution. Sino ang may akda ng Philippine Constitution Preamble? Ang Republika ay may konstitusyon na binalangkasan ng Isabelo Artacho at Felix Ferrer. Ito ay nakabatay sa unang konstitusyon ng Kuban. Ito ay kilala bilang Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas at orihinal na isinulat at ipinahayag sa mga wikang Espanyol at Tagalog. 1987 Philippine Constitution Preamble, Meaning and Purpose. Nagpakita ito ng makapangyarihang mensahe tungkol sa ating malalim na tungkulin at responsibilidad sa bawat Pilipino at sa ating lipunan.
Bilang isang malayang bansa, dapat tayong kumilos at gugulin ang ating kalayaan ng may pangakong nakatuon sa pagmamahal sa bayan, kapayapaan at pagkakaisa.
Hey baby, halina